As Seattle plans a new minimum wage and tax increase on Uber and Lyft, Uber says, that's fine. Drivers are not core to our business anyway. What the?
Xbox, Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google,
Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin, the Apptrepreneur, and today's video is really more like 3 stories into one. So before anyone sends me an email or a comment like, hey Kevin, why didn't you tackle this story today? You might want to watch the whole video to make sure that I actually tackled this one. And let's get started right away with this article from GeekWire. Seattle plans minimum wage and new tax on Uber and Lyft adding to ride-hailing's regulatory woes. It's been a rough month for ride-hailing companies, and Seattle is about to put another bump on the road. Well, yeah, Seattle has been like a problem for Uber and Lyft for a while. You might recall they became this close to being the first state to actually unionize rideshare. I don't know if that actually went through. I actually can't remember, to be honest, but, you know, they're still on them, and this doesn't surprise me at all. As Uber and Lyft grapple with new California regulations that could threaten their business models, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan is working on a plan to tax the industry and establish a minimum wage for drivers. It's always about tax money. The city says its goal is to ensure drivers are protected by the same labor standards that traditional employees enjoy while raising revenue for affordable housing and other objectives. The minimum wage threshold and details of the tax have not been finalized, but a Lyft spokesperson said the company understands that the city is considering charging an annual per ride fee. Uber and Lyft already pay 24 cents for every ride originating in Seattle under a city ordinance passed in 2014. On Monday evening, Lyft and Durkan's office traded letters about the proposal. The documents obtained by GeekWire includes new details about legislation Durkan plans to introduce this year. So, you know, this has not been officially confirmed or announced yet. This is all insider stuff. We have to keep that in mind. Let's see here. In addition to a minimum wage and tax, Durkan's office says it wants to ensure drivers have paid time off, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, and other benefits. I mean, really what it sounds like, they want an employee law. I mean, that's what they're essentially asking for the drivers to be employees. Cities like Seattle are becoming the new safety net, so we must ensure adequate wages and benefits for all the workers, the city's letter says. Seattle is a national leader ensuring our workers are treated fairly. I doubt that. You've got Amazon in your city, in your backyard, right there, and you want to say something like, I'm sorry. That's getting way off topic at this point. But anyway, in its letter, Lyft says it supports a driver earnings guarantee that ensures all Seattle drivers earn above the city's $16 minimum wage. Lyft says drivers earn more than $20 per hour, but the company is resistant to a tax that would only apply to ride-hailing companies. Lyft wants Durkan to consider a tax on all vehicles in Seattle. See, yeah, that's the key word right there. That's the thing with Uber and Lyft. Like, oh, we don't object to there being a tax on things, but we want it to be on all vehicles, not just on ours. Which it's like, you know what? No, there's a reason you're getting targeted and not everyone else. You're getting targeted because you're the one making a business out of it, and businesses get taxed. It's not nice. It might not even be fair in some situations. A comic book shop that's near me recently closed down. Monday was its last day, and they had a notice saying that they were moving to Tennessee and to visit them on their website for future orders, and that they would still have, you know, they still had a lot of the comic books still in the shop, which leads me to believe that the business taxes in California are so high, they simply can't make it. So what do? Well, they pack up their bags to go to Tennessee. They probably focus more on online sales. That's where most of the money is anyway, it seems. So I can understand that there is such a thing as taxing too much. But the thing is, Lyft and Uber are businesses. You know, regular cars are not. And I mean, the thing is, if you end up charging a tax for all cars, I don't even think it's going to like push people to use Uber and Lyft. I think they're going to be like, well, hey, if I'm paying the taxes one way or the other, I'm just going to, you know, drive my own car. Granted, if there's an extra tax on Uber and Lyft only, people might be just as inclined to do that. So Lyft and Uber are kind of in a no-win situation. They might as well push for that to happen. So Lyft shares your concerns about the increasing challenge of affordability in Seattle, the company says. letter. After housing, transportation costs are the second largest household expense for most families. You see, they're trying to portray themselves as a good guy here. We believe that added taxes on rideshare penalizes the very groups you are seeking to help. Well, yeah, but here's the other thing. I mean, it's always interesting because Lyft, here's the thing. They're saying, oh yeah, we support a $16 minimum wage. But by the way, most of our drivers make more than $20 an hour. And we think everyone should be taxed. I mean, no, if this was truly making more than $16 an hour, you wouldn't be getting these laws. You wouldn't be getting this regulation. So, and of course, Uber's position to Lyft is very similar. And it says Seattle's new regulations are part of a broader push to extend worker protections to occupations that aren't covered by traditional employer-employee relationships. Last year, Seattle became the first city in the U.S. to introduce a domestic workers' bill of rights, coupled with a law that gives the minimum wage and rest breaks to thousands of nannies, housekeepers, gardeners, and other home service providers. And yeah, I'm thinking the longer this goes on, really the solution might be to figure out a third category. I am not against a third category being introduced because, again, most people who do the gig economy, they want the benefits and the overtime and the sick leave and all that stuff. And yet they also want to keep their flexibility. The flexibility is so paramount, so crucial that there's a lot of people who frankly, to be honest, they don't care how little they're paid. As long as they have flexibility, then they don't care. I mean, sometimes they just like having that flexibility. Sometimes they don't have a lot of choice. They've got like a medical condition or something. Like, hey, they can only work so many hours. And if they have to have like a job that they can get fired for constantly being sick and calling in, then it's just not going to work out for them. So there are people with legitimate reasons. So, since these are the main concerns, and since neither the independent contractor or the employee status fully addresses it, then maybe the third category is the solution to kind of find that middle ground. Of course, one of the problems, and I point this out again and again, Uber and Lyft could definitely take it upon themselves to pay the employees enough so that we don't even need the third option, but that's where we are. But it might not even matter too much because they have actually explained that drivers aren't a core ingredient to their business, and Vox is definitely not having that one. So this is an opinion piece, so I won't read the whole thing but I will have a link to it below so that you can. It said, last week, California lawmakers passed AB 5, a bill that's expected to upend the business models of gig economy companies like Uber and Lyft that depend on the cheap, relatively unregulated labor of a contractor workforce. Experts predict that the law could cost Uber an additional $500 million in annual operating costs alone if it ends up compelling the company to reclassify its workers as employees, who would be eligible for minimum wage, health care, and overtime protection. But Uber and Lyft say they're not worried. In fact, both ride-hailing companies say the new law doesn't force them to make the costly change of turning their drivers into employees. That's because to do so, they would have to consider drivers as part of their usual course of business. Uber has said its drivers aren't because the app is really a tech platform for digital marketplace and not primarily an employer of drivers. Now, there was a video I came very close to making, but then I needed a day off and, just there's been so much stuff that's been going on that I ended up uploading a video that I made last week that was never meant to be seen and, caused a lot of drama here. So that's what happened. But there was some things Uber and Lyft were trying that they said, hey, if AB 5 passes, we're not classifying them as employees because we don't qualify for this. And granted, that can be challenged and it should be challenged. However, they will make statements like this because they have to. It's a delaying tactic. I mean, they have to at least try. It's kind of like when you get sued for something and the first thing like a company does is they file an anti-SLAPP motion. Like, this lawsuit is an abuse of power. Most of the time, it's not. But hey, they have to file it. It's worth a shot because under the anti-SLAPP motion, case can get dismissed, and then the people who are suing you have to pay your legal fees. And by the way, that's something that could be a whole nother video, but I'm not a lawyer. I definitely have issues with it because it's like, yeah, I understand people shouldn't have to do frivolous lawsuits, but then, the way it's written, honestly, it makes it a little too easy for powerful people to use it. But anyway, so Here's the thing. Labor groups and politicians are seething over Uber's argument. In interviews with Recode, they said they see it as another way that Uber and Lyft, which also said it won't change its business, are trying to get out of providing basic employment protections to their hundreds of thousands of drivers in California. Quote, they're digging in their heels like a child would and saying, we refuse to change, said Vina Dubal, a law professor at UC Hastings who researches the gig economy. Uber's chief legal officer, Tony West, on some level probably realizes how preposterous it is, but that's the line they've taken, and they have to be consistent with it. It's interesting that that's the line that they've taken, because this video is not going to be up until like maybe next Thursday. I have to edit it a little bit more. But Uber CEO Dar Khosrowshahi had a very interesting interview. A very interesting interview where I think he completely, whether he realized he was doing it or not, undermined their entire legal argument. And if that interview had gone viral, then you would not be hearing this argument very much. You just wouldn't, because it would already be out that the CEO doesn't believe in this. But here's the thing. How important are Uber's workers? Like, how are they not essential to their business? Well, here's the thing. They have enough that they can bring Manhattan traffic to a nearly total stop at rush hour. So here's the story. Uber and Lyft drivers protesting over pay and working conditions brought traffic on the FDR drive to a nearly dead stop at rush hour Tuesday morning. Video from Chapter 4 showed a caravan of black cars slowly rolling up the northbound FDR just after 8 a.m. with a massive line of stalled traffic behind them. By 8:45, traffic was still crawling. Some cars attempted, at times unsuccessfully, to squeeze past the caravan, which appeared to be dozens strong. The Independent Drivers Guild, which represents drivers with two rideshare companies, said it was protesting app changes that it claims will result in drivers being paid less. Yeah, if you want to find out about New York and all that jazz, I recommend NYC Vlog. He definitely understands the New York market way more than I do. In fact, he is consistently emailing me to explain how it works in New York, and he usually does this because I'm getting it wrong, because I don't drive in New York, and I actually even try to avoid New York news and stories, because it became pretty obvious at some point I really don't know how this market works. But I think I can confidently talk about this one, because I've got feelings about blocking traffic in protests. I agree and believe in your right to protest. I really do. But protesting for Uber and Lyft is a very unique situation, because you are not part of a union and you really don't have any bargaining power. The only thing you can do really is to stop driving and hope that they eventually change their rates or something to convince you to come back. And when you protest and you shut down traffic, that creates a problem, because more and more people are being sympathetic to Uber and Lyft drivers and their plight. But once you start, shutting down traffic, they're actually not very sympathetic to you at that point. In fact, they're fairly against you. They no longer see like, hey, I'm protesting for a better wage. I'm protesting for right to live. They're going like, dang you, kid, I'm going to be late because of you. That's what's going on. But here's the thing. It's important to pair it with this story, because the drivers are clearly essential. They are essential. They can do a lot of damage, and, Uber needs to have a response for this. I don't know if this is the response. I am okay with a bare minimum of drivers being paid. I always have been. I really wish, again, I always wish, it would always have been ideal if Uber and Lyft had done this themselves. If they had done this themselves, then everyone would be fine. Get paid good. It's totally on them, no regulation. Because I am concerned about what happens when the government gets in on this. They will overreach. I know they will. We've talked about other industries that this bill is going to affect, particularly the nursing industry, that it's not geared to affect those places, but it will by its very nature about what it is. And so I really wish Uber and Lyft had just done the right thing, but it's pretty clear that they're never going to, and so that's why some regulation is needed. But anyway, that's where we're going to end all of that. What do you think about any of these stories? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree? I would love to know. So Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly, and you'll get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are just a little low for you, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, but you'll get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want more content from me that's not necessarily rideshare related, check out my other channels at Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur Vlogs, and Autograph Hound, although they won't be updated much for the next week, admittingly. And if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers out there, check us out at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts. And with that, flame responsibly. Have a good one.